Okay, welcome to episode 4 of Amit-Hub, Nothing But the Facts. Had to do this one just now, record it now, because I just watched The Penguin, new HBO Max show about the Penguin, one of the main villains in the Batman DC comic universe. Have a lot of thoughts. So I'm not going to try to spoil anything in the show, in case you haven't watched it, in case you want to watch it, but definitely a lot of reviewing sort of perspectives and things that I think it did really, really well throughout the 8 episodes that we watched pretty recently. So first things first, I wanted to actually remark on something one of my friends just told me, which is that it's very clear that the DC universe spends much more time on its villains and creating genuine narratives about their villains than the Marvel universe does, and this is a great example of that. Whether it's this with Penguin, Joker, the Riddler, it seems that DC spends so much more time developing its villains or sort of anti-heroes into people who have depth and oftentimes don't have any real superpowers or anything supernatural. It's more of a mental study or a character study, and the arc that all of them experience is so much more rewarding in a way when you see what they achieve or what they succumb to. And that's really, really remarkable in terms of just story writing and just direction. Now, in terms of things I thought of as I was watching the show that it did really well, beyond just the screenplay and the performances, which are all incredible, I think Colin Farrell did an incredible job. Beyond the makeup, he just delivered his lines in a way that seemed, in a way it was wistful, because it reminds you of so many of the other legendary villains you see or mafia dons you see in old Hollywood. It gave a very Tony Soprano, Vito Corleone vibe, but still mixed with the crudeness and the strength of a taxi driver. I think his name is Travis Bickett or something. Travis Bickle. That's Taxi Driver. So it's a mix of the underworld that you see in those movies and those mafia don, gangster related, Italian flavored sort of movies and productions, with the same sort of ambience and vibe and environment of the Joker, like the first one with Joaquin Phoenix. So I think if I were to try to describe the vibe that the show is going for, it would definitely be a really intriguing mix of all of those. Now, beyond that, how do I think it did really well? I think the way it was filmed, using lighting, using colors, using costumes to highlight such like differences in moods during the show was really powerful. I think color was used in a very, very effective way. There are times when you can see that certain colors are associated with certain attributes. You see this with cars, you see this with costumes, you see this with set design, and I think it adds so much to the entire production of the show. We also see that in terms of inspiration, there are many cutscenes that are used in a way that I think the Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul producer, Vince Gilligan sort of pioneered this, the art of using cutscenes at the beginning of a show that became a motif throughout that episode or that show, and coming back to it makes sort of the payoff of what you see so much more powerful. And I think this show takes severe and really strong inspiration from that idea, especially from the second half onwards. Going back to my point about how well the arcs and narratives are built, I think many of the characters are first fleshed out in a very exciting, fast-paced way, but as the show develops, they spend more time on giving their background and their narratives. That just adds a lot of depth to the character that, in the same way I talked about, just makes it so much more satisfying than just seeing a superhero fly around or some villain just get everything because he's quote-unquote bad, right? I just thought the show was just very well produced, well acted, direction was strong, and though there were a few plot holes, nothing major, there were a few times you just wondered, oh, I mean, I'm living a little bit of a suspension of disbelief because it's a show and they could have been a bit tighter relative to what comes out these days, and certainly for a show that's supposed to be comic booky slash superhero inspired. It's an incredible show. I will have to think more about, you know, where it ranks among all shows I've ever seen, all productions I've ever seen, but definitely has done a great job. As someone who just likes watching movies in which you see family drama, operatic themes, very strong music. Actually, on the music point, we see that it's heavily inspired by the old time classics like the jazz, the Americana, the really like nostalgic American music in important scenes to almost take you back to a time where there's this sense of innocence that is juxtaposed against the really violent and kind of disturbing moments of the show. And I think that is something that might be a bit of a trope nowadays, but the way it's done in the show is very tasteful. And I think Matt Reeves, who was the director of The Batman, which was kind of the prequel to this, and he's still the producer, also took from Todd Phillips, who I think is the Joker director, because I think he's the one who really started using this sort of Americana jazz inspired score for DC and the villains associated with it. And it's really powerful. It works really well. I think there's just a mix of so many things going on in this show. I don't want to ramble for too long, but overall, the Penguin is one of the better shows I've seen in a very long time, and it just develops his characters and overall direction so much better than other things you'll see. So please watch it. If you have watched it, let me know what you think, and maybe I'll go on and start just reviewing shows and movies now. I think this is really successful in terms of allowing me to think about what I've seen, and I'd love to hear how other people have thought about this stuff. So thanks, and I'll see you next time.